On April 22, 2020, U.S. soldier Vanessa Guillén entered a weapons warehouse. Moments later, she sensed the presence of someone behind her. She turned around, only to be struck on the head with a hammer, rendering her unconscious immediately. The attacker didn't stop there, continuing to hit her with the hammer until her head was completely crushed. After she died, her body was dismembered and placed in a box to be disposed of later in a remote area along the Leon River with the help of a fellow soldier. Who killed Vanessa and why? How was this crime discovered? This case became a major topic in the American media for a long time, filled with shocking and intriguing details. Vanessa was a young woman born in Houston, Texas, on September 30, 1999, who dreamed of a fulfilling military career. She grew up in a proud Mexican-American family, the third of 6 children, in a warm and close-knit household. According to her family, Vanessa had a strong personality. After graduating from high school, she decided to join the armed forces. She was athletic, and her sister said, "Vanessa was my role model since I was a child. She had a wonderful personality." Vanessa's family became worried when she did not contact them as usual. Vanessa was always in regular communication with her family and fiancé, so her lack of response to messages and calls was concerning, especially since Vanessa had confided in her mother before her disappearance that she was being sexually harassed by a superior at Fort Hood military base. When Vanessa continued to be missing, her family tried to reach her colleagues at the base but received no satisfactory answers. The concern grew when her colleagues reported to their superiors that Vanessa did not show up for work, and no one knew her whereabouts. The family realized the seriousness of the situation, so her mother contacted the base officials demanding an immediate investigation. Initially, the family received only reassuring responses from the military base that they would look for Vanessa, but as time passed without any trace of her, the family's concern and determination to find her increased. They were frustrated with the slow pace of the investigations and the apparent lack of adequate attention from the authorities, so they decided to take action themselves. Vanessa's family took several steps to search for her and push for uncovering the truth and achieving justice. They started by searching for Vanessa around Fort Hood and nearby areas, organizing search teams, and posting flyers with her picture and contact information. They contacted military and local authorities, urging them to intensify search efforts and investigate her disappearance, demanding more transparency and continuous updates on the investigation's progress. The family turned to the media to spread her story widely, which helped attract public attention and increase pressure on the authorities to act quickly. They conducted several television and newspaper interviews to convey messages about the search for Vanessa. One restaurant owner who knew her well provided a video clip of Vanessa from the last time she visited his restaurant, stating, "I knew her well. She and other soldiers frequently visited my restaurant to buy supplies. During that last visit, Vanessa didn't seem well. She looked anxious and appeared to be frightened by something. I hope she returns safely and that the person responsible for her disappearance is brought to justice." When the family felt that their daughter's case was not receiving enough attention, they organized demonstrations and protests outside Fort Hood base to demand justice and uncover Vanessa's fate. These protests helped draw attention to the case and garnered support from the public and human rights organizations. The family continued to pressure government officials and politicians to intervene and investigate Vanessa's disappearance. Authorities offered a $50,000 reward for any information leading to Vanessa's whereabouts. The family and her loved ones also called for stringent laws against harassment and awareness campaigns on how to handle harassment and violence cases within the military. The family collaborated with human rights organizations and women's rights groups to unite efforts and demand changes in military policies to ensure the protection of soldiers and prevent such incidents from recurring. 2 months later, on a June morning in 2020, something heart-wrenching happened to her family and everyone following her case. The remains of soldier Vanessa Guillén were found in a secluded area near the Leon River in Bell County, Texas. Those scattered remains testified to the cruelty and horror she faced in her final moments. Vanessa, the ambitious young woman who sought to serve her country with courage and dedication, met a horrific and inhumane end. The hopes she carried and the smiles that adorned her face were lost to the darkness of a brutal crime, leaving behind an unforgettable shock and pain. Her story was not just a passing incident, but a symbol of a larger tragedy reflecting the harassment and violence many women face within the U.S. military. After the body was found, Vanessa's murder became certain, and investigators began scrutinizing evidence and gathering testimonies from her colleagues on the day she disappeared. Her colleagues at the base testified that they saw Aaron Robinson in the armory at the same time Vanessa was there, making him the primary suspect. Suspicions about Aaron grew, especially after investigators noticed inconsistencies in his testimony and movements on the day of Vanessa's disappearance and his refusal to take a polygraph test. Following this horrifying revelation, facts about the cruelty Vanessa endured began to emerge, making her story a symbol for demanding justice and reform within the military institution. This led investigators to further suspect Aaron's involvement in Vanessa's murder. Consequently, they examined some of his military tools and were not surprised to find traces of Vanessa's DNA on them. This allowed the investigators to obtain a court order to search Aaron's call records. They examined Aaron's call log on the day the young recruit disappeared and quickly discovered that Aaron had made several calls to Cecily Aguilar, a close friend of his. The investigators summoned Cecily for questioning, and after attempts to evade, she finally confessed that Aaron contacted her that day to ask for her help in disposing of Vanessa's body. At that moment, the investigators' suspicions were confirmed, and they became certain that Vanessa had been killed by Aaron. But the question remains, why did he kill her? Vanessa Guillén had shared with family members her fears and her experiences of sexual harassment within the military base. Although she did not directly name her harasser, suspicions were centered on Aaron Robinson. Investigators believe Aaron killed Vanessa after she threatened to expose him and report the harassment she was subjected to. A report from the Texas Department of Public Safety revealed shocking details based on interviews with Cecily, confirming that Vanessa had seen a photo of Aaron and Cecily together. This discovery worried Aaron about getting into trouble for violating the military's fraternization rules, as Aaron was having an illicit relationship with Cecily, who was a married woman and whose husband was also a recruit. When Vanessa learned of the matter, Aaron was greatly afraid that she would report him to his military superiors, which could result in serious consequences, especially given his high rank in the Army. Even though the military regulations at that time prevented recruits from reporting directly to superiors higher than their immediate ones, the possibility of him being punished was significant. Was the fear and anxiety that Aaron felt enough to drive him to commit murder within the military base? This question lingered in everyone's minds, casting shadows of horror and fear that a human life might be sacrificed to hide disgraceful actions. In one of the horrifying scenes that unfolded during the investigations, Cecily confessed that the day Vanessa was killed was filled with terror and shock. On that fateful day, Cecily received a suspicious call from Aaron, her Army colleague, asking her to come immediately to the armory. The girl felt anxious and tense but rushed to the place. When Cecily entered the armory, she was confronted with an unforgettable sight. Vanessa was lying on the ground, her head completely smashed and surrounded by a pool of blood. The scene was terrifying, and she began to realize the enormity of the crime Aaron had committed. Aaron struggled to convince Cecily to help him dispose of the body, emphasizing the need to leave no trace that could lead to the discovery of their crime. The scene was like a living nightmare, but Cecily soon regained her composure and revealed that Aaron had brutally attacked Vanessa with a hammer, leading to her fatal injuries. Cecily was struck by terror and questioned how her lover Aaron could commit such a horrific act, but Aaron, with unprecedented cold blood, calmed her down and asked for her assistance in hiding the body. At that moment, Cecily felt both awe and fear, but she succumbed to Aaron's pressure and agreed to help him. With trembling hearts and shaking hands, they began dismembering Vanessa's body and placing the parts in a box before transporting them to a secluded location along the Lion River, where they disposed of them in a desperate attempt to hide the crime. This horrific crime marked a turning point in the investigation, revealing the cruelty and brutality Vanessa had endured and demonstrating the lengths to which humans would go to conceal their sins. Her story sparked a wave of anger and sorrow, becoming a symbol for the demand for justice and reform within the military institution. Cecily explained during her confession to investigators that Aaron seemed confident that no one would discover what happened if they worked together. When Aaron learned that the authorities were closing in on him, he attempted to flee the base, but was quickly tracked down, with the authorities on the verge of capturing him. Facing the likelihood of being caught, Aaron chose to end his life by shooting himself, thereby evading justice. His girlfriend Cecily was not as fortunate. She faced serious criminal charges and is expected to spend a long time behind bars. Vanessa's family did not stop at uncovering the crime and seeking justice. They continued their struggle to achieve genuine reforms in the military system. This arduous journey took them to the highest levels of power, where they met with government officials and discussed the case in the Oval Office with the President of the United States. Their efforts inspired many other victims and drove real changes in military policies. This incident permanently changed U.S. military laws, resulting in the enactment of the Vanessa Guillén Act, which aimed to address the Department of Defense's response to sex-related crimes against service members. The legislation included provisions allowing a service member to file a confidential complaint about sexual harassment against someone, bypassing their direct chain of command.